what do you think about John Winchester?
She says she likes him.
He's in. Paige, no! Hello, and welcome back to Super Hell, aka the Mystery Spotcast, a show where two recovering Supernatural fans subject themselves to a rewatch, so no one else ever has to watch Supernatural again. This is an effort to prevent you all from rewatching the show or watching it for the first time. So we cannot stress enough. Don't watch it. We are taking on this endeavor so that you won't. And we keep hearing that people have decided to watch it.
No,
because
not
of the podcast. Stop.
Not the goal.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if like I keep wanting to say like, well, if you're gonna do it, just be safe. But I'm also like, don't. Like, I don't want to give you that concession.
Yeah, it's like meth. No.
I mean, it's kind of like the meth of television.
Yeah. I'm Klaudia. My pronouns are she, her, and you can find me on social media at Klaudia says, Kaludia says.
And I am Ollie. I use any pronouns, and you can find me on social media at Ollie Fresh. It's fresh with a PH. Oh boy. Do we have some content for y'all today?
Unfortunately, the spin-off of Supernatural, the prequel, the Winchesters, as we've said in a couple episodes, is surprisingly good. So we will be discussing it again today on the Mystery Spotcast, the last two episodes that have aired since our last episode. So we will only be talking about one episode of Supernatural today, and we are now, halfway through season 2?
I think we're a little over halfway through season 2 actually, because this is episode 14, and I believe there's 22 in this season.
Yeah. Ollie, well, I should say we should probably give a content warning for this episode.
There's some suicidal ideation, a little bit.
Also sexual harassment.
Some sexual harassment.
Yeah.
Like, those are probably the two big ones. It's not, like, terrible. It's not nothing graphic or anything. It's just for, like, a few moments. But the suicidal ideation, that does continue throughout the entire episode and probably for the rest of the show. So
yeah,
sorry about that.
I did legit forget how dark this part got and how early it begins, because I was like, oh Jesus, oh all right, we're already here.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Sam has some issues that we'll be getting into. Do we want to talk about this episode?
Actually, no, fucking.
Oh, okay, yeah, so true. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. That is the end. I'm just kidding. So this episode is season 2, episode 14. It's called Born Under a Bad Sign. So, we start. The episode begins. This is shot really funny because it uses strategic cuts to make it look like it's moving faster than it is, to show you how frantic Dean is feeling. It's actually like a very interesting filmmaking device. The editing is a little bit like wonky, so it did kind of give me a little bit of a headache, but I do think it's interesting what they were trying to do. But the episode starts with Dean. He's like on the passenger side of the Impala, parked under a bridge. He's talking to Ellen, and he's like on the phone with her. He's like, have you heard from Sam? I don't know where he is. He still haven't heard from him. And it shows him like going around and like looking and calling people, driving around. And he's like, yeah, no, I keep trying to call him. It keeps going to voicemail. I have no idea where he went or why. I don't know what's going on. So we have this little montage of Dean like looking. And then his phone rings, and Dean answers, and Sam's like, hi, I'm like kind of freaking out right now. I need you to come help me. And Dean's like, okay, I'm on my way. Where are you? And he tells him that he has been staying at a motel in Twin Lakes. Dean shows up, and he's like, Sam? He opens the door, and Sam is sitting on this bed, like, just kind of despondent. And Dean runs up. He's like, hey, you okay? And he looks, and the front of his shirt is like covered in blood. And Dean's like, oh my God. So he starts kind of like trying to like look at him to examine to see if he's hurt. And Sam's like, I don't think it's my blood. I don't know what happened. I don't remember anything from the past, however long it's been since I left. So yeah, that's the cold open that we see. Supernatural.
Yeah, it's gonna be a plot heavy episode. We don't have a fun little fun little monster to hunt this time around. This time around, we are directly dealing with the fact that Sam has something fucked up inside, which is something that they keep alluding to, but...
Could you say he's fighting demons?
I'm ending the podcast.
All right, thank you so much for listening. This is the second time our podcast has ended this episode. So, the boys start investigating, right? Dean's like, okay, we don't know what happened. We just need to figure it out. You're okay. That's what matters. So Dean is like, goes down to the front desk and he comes back and he's like, okay, so Sam, you checked into the motel 2 days ago under the name Richard Sambora. And then he kind of makes fun of him for being like, oh, you couldn't have picked a better name. Like, you were picking Bon Jovi. Okay, whatever. And Sam was like, is that really important right now? He's like, yeah, it's kind of important. Anyway, the room has been quiet. No one has noticed you leave or anything unusual, so I don't know what's going on. And he's like, what's the last thing you remember? And Sam's like, I remember the two of us at a motel in West Texas. We were getting burgers. And the next thing I knew, I was here. And Dean's like, okay, that was like over a week ago. That was almost 2 weeks ago. And Sam's like, I don't know even how I got here. I feel like I've been asleep for like months. So the boys try to like retrace their steps. Dean is like, okay, so the manager told me that he saw you leave your room yesterday afternoon, but you didn't come back. So I don't quite know what happened there. So Sam like gets up and is like looking around, and Dean walks by the window lock and he realizes that there's like some blood on the window. So he's like, okay, obviously you brought the blood with you. So we just kind of got to backtrack. So they go outside of the motel and they're like walking around, and Sam's like, hey, there's a storage lot across the street. Let's go over there. That like feels familiar. And Sam recognizes a door and he's like, this is familiar. So Dean's like trying to open it, and then Sam looks into his pocket and he's like, oh my gosh, I have the key to this door. So they're like, whoa, okay, cool. So you were here. So they unlock it, and it's like a big storage unit, right? And inside there's a blue Volkswagen Beetle, like a vintage one. And Dean's like, geez, I hope you didn't steal that, because that'd be kind of crazy.
When this popped up, I was reminded of the episode where one of them is turned into a car.
Oh my god.
The Herbie Fully Loaded episode. Not the one where Dean is turned into a dog. The one where they turn into a car. And I was just like, oh, I hate this show. So, not to be confused with the episode with the giant teddy bear, which I was just reminded exists. Anyways.
We should really be doing segments on this show where we say, is this something that happens after season 5 or did we make it up? Because it'd be crazy. So they look at the interior of the car and they notice that the steering wheel is covered in blood. And then Dean looks in the back seat and there's a knife covered in blood. And there's also a pack of cigarettes on the floor. And Sam then reaches into his pocket and finds the receipt from a gas station a couple towns over. And Dina's like, well, you're not really a smoker, so maybe this wasn't you. Maybe you didn't do this. Maybe this is someone who sniffs the thing. Maybe it's someone who smokes menthols. Maybe it was not you. And Sam's like, are you fucking kidding me? Okay, sure. So he
also says, like, he's like, this doesn't seem like very Sam behavior. This, drinking and smoking and throwing things, like, that seems like a Dean thing. And I'm like, Dean, you don't smoke.
Yeah,
I think that's what you think you're like, but you're really not.
Like, Dean once again has an unrealistic vision of himself in his head.
It comes from being in the closet. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. So they go to this gas station, right? And it's a couple towns over, so it's a little bit of a drive. So Sam and Dean walk in, and the cashier sees Sam and immediately is like, get out or I will call the cops. Not you again. And they're like, whoa, what? I'm sorry. He's like, no, I'm going to call the cops. Don't try to make an excuse. And Dean's like, Sam, go wait in the car. I'm going to talk to this gentleman. So Sam leaves, and the guy like puts the phone down. And Dean's like, I'm really sorry about my brother. What did he do? And he's like, oh yeah, that guy out there yesterday, he came in, quote, drunk as a skunk. and then grabbed a 40 from the fridge and just started chugging it, like, in the gas station. And then he took 2 packs of cigarettes and just started smoking like a chimney, and then walked out without paying. And Dean's like, okay, here, this should cover it, and puts like a wad of cash down on the table. And the guy's like, yeah, okay. He's like, so where was he heading?
I have a question about when he does that, because they have established that they receive money through doing credit card fraud. So how are they getting
ATM,
cash?
gambling,
Oh
hustling,
yeah,
hustling people at pool.
Yeah, you're right.
But he puts cash down, and the guy's like, and he's like, which way did Sam go? And the guy's like, he actually bought another pack of cigarettes, so maybe you'll have to remind me. So Dean's like, okay, and he puts another wad of cash down, and he's like, oh yeah, he went north, out of town, up Route 71.
Also, the cashier says something absolutely bonkers here, where he says a line that is both racist and puzzling.
Oh my god, yeah.
Where you're like, number one, I've never heard anybody use this specific racist turn of phrase.
No,
and
literally.
Number two, and like, where'd you pull that out from? He was like, I like when Sam was like confused of like, I don't know what he did, and he's like, do you think I'm speaking Urdu here? And I'm like,
no, he's like,
where did you pull that out from?
He's like, I'm gonna call the cops. And Sam's like, wait, why? I don't understand. He's like, what, am I speaking Urdu?
You're like,
what?
Huh?
Sir, that's not even like something people say. You're just being racist for fun.
Like, where did you get that? Anyway, Supernatural writers, and this is the thing that Supernatural does all the time, where they're like, we're gonna be racist in a new creative way, and you're like, how the fuck did that pop into your head?
For no reason. It's just
literally,
like, what? Why? No, why?
Why?
Quickly.
There are other languages, there are even other ethnicities that sometimes people will pull up in that sort of racist saying.
Because you know what? If I was gonna say something like that, I'd be like, what, am I speaking French? Like,
yeah,
that's my first instinct.
Well, that's not racist. Fuck French people, but
but that's my point. Is it's like, I don't know why he specifically went with that. It was just so strange.
It was so odd.
Anyway, so the boys are driving up on the interstate, and Sam is like looking kind of introspective. And Dean's like, like, we don't know if it was you. And then Sam's like, wait, pull onto this side road here. So they pull onto this side road, and Dean's like, are you sure about this? He's like, yeah, no, I like remember being here. And they pull up to this like dark, unlit house. It has a security camera. And they walk up to the door, and they knock, and no one answers. And Dean is like, you're surprised. Like, I'm surprised it's someone with a security system like this. You'd expect they'd have an alarm system. And they notice that one of like the windows is smashed open. And Sam's like, yeah, that is weird. And then he walks over and sees that the alarm system has been like cut, like the wire has been cut. So they go into the house, and they're walking around, and they go into like this office, and they discover a dead body on the floor in one of the rooms. He is like had his neck slashed. And Sam immediately is like, oh my god, I did this with the knife that we found in the back of the car. Dean's like, no. Like, you would have had a reason. You wouldn't just kill a guy. Like, if you did kill him, it was probably like self-defense, or maybe he was just like a bad son of a bitch. And then they open up the closet, and they find a wall of weapons and like photographs of missing people and a bunch of articles about like supernatural creatures and stuff. And Dean's like, look, this dude was crazy. And Sam's like, no, he was a hunter. I killed a hunter. This is so fucked up. So his computer's in this room, right? They open it, and they find the footage from the security camera that is not only outside, but he has a security camera like in his office. So they're looking through like the office security camera from the previous night, which shows Sam entering the room like he looks insane. Like he's attacking this guy, and he's like throwing punches at him, and then he punches the dude out, and then it shows him dragging the guy to the middle of the room and slicing his throat with that knife. And Sam just is like resigned. And he's just sitting there. And Dean is like behind him. He's like, okay, no, we have to get out of here. We need to clean up this mess. We need to destroy all of the footage. Because if he's a hunter, other hunters are going to come looking for him. And then they're going to find us. And it's going to be so fucked up. Wipe your prints. We need to leave. And Sam's like, well, I don't know. Like, look, I just found a letter from his daughter saying that, like, thank you for the gift and I'll see you soon. Like, this was a guy and I just killed him. This is so fucked up. And then Dean grabs the computer and smashes it. And he's like, we're not doing this. We have to go.
Dean is like, this is the first instance where you see how with the shits Dean is, because Dean is very, like, I mean, he does this later with Castiel, the I stand with my canceled wife. Like, I stand with my canceled brother. Like, he's like, oh, my brother murdered a bitch? Okay. Like, and he's like, but here's also the thing. He's like, oh, clean up your prints. I'm like, you guys run around crime scenes touching things that could get you in trouble all the time. Why do you care about the prints now? Oh, because he actually killed somebody? Well, before the FBI was on your case anyway, and you didn't care about getting your fucking prints everywhere. You're an idiot.
No, he cares about it because it's only Sam's prints. He's like, if I'm there, then it's okay because I'll just take the blame, but not my boy.
Yeah. It's so, I mean, I stand by my canceled brother.
So they go back to the motel. And Dean the whole time is like, Sam, this wasn't you. Like, maybe it was a shapeshifter or like something that looked like you. And Sam is like, dude, you saw the footage. You know that was not a shapeshifter. Like, there were no eye flares or anything. And plus, for the past couple of weeks, I've been having these feelings of like rage and hate that I can't control. And these feelings keep getting worse. I feel like an evil side is taking over.
I have to say, we're gonna talk about the Winchesters later, but rewatching this after having watched the Winchesters, where Johnny boy, their father, is like, yeah, I just having a lot of issues with my rage issues. I'm like,
It's
stop
dark.
making me feel emotions about the Winchester. Stop it.
Yeah.
Enough.
So Sam is having this moment, and then he grabs his gun and hands it to Dean, and he says, you can just end it. Like, take me out, because I don't want to hurt anyone else. Dean grabs the gun, and he looks at Sam, and Sam's just, like, so sad and resigned, and, like, looks like he's ready to die. And Dean takes the gun down, he's like, I would rather die than do that. Are you fucking kidding me? I've done everything in my life to protect you. I'm not gonna kill you. And Sam's like, well, like, no. Like, this is, you have to. This is, like, what Dad was preparing you for. And he's like, yeah, and Dad's dead. Like, I'm not doing
Dad's
that.
a bitch.
And Dad's a punk bitch. I'm not doing that.
But this shows Dean's growth.
Yeah.
He's growing.
Yeah. But Dean's like, yeah, I would rather die than do that. And then Sam's, like, whole demeanor changes and his face gets really, like, fucked up and mean. And he goes, no. You'll live. But you'll live to regret it. And he picks up the gun and turns it on Dean, but then he rams the gun into the side of his head and storms out. And
you're like,
knocks him out. Yeah.
I remember being like, on jaw on the floor, this is crazy.
I like completely forgot what happened in this episode too, so I was like, wait.
I'm just like, whoa. And then I remembered what episode it was, but like when I first watched it, I was like, holy shit.
Also, Sam in his crazy era.
Unfortunately, he has several crazy eras, but then Dean has a couple crazy.
Oh yeah, no, they balance each other out.
Also, the foreshadowing.
Oh,
I'm thinking many thoughts.
So, Dean wakes up face down on the floor the next day. Someone's pounding at the door. It's the motel manager, and he's like, "You're past checkout, so I'm gonna have to charge you more. I have a couple here who needs the room." And Dean, like, looks out into the hall, and there's, like, this guy in a suit and this girl, like, dressed scantily clad who has, like, bleached hair. It's clearly supposed to be like, oh, she's, like, they're trashy, whatever. They're gonna have sex. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm sure they do need a room. I'm like, girl, check yourself, Dean. Who do you think you are?
Dean, I'm like, I hate you, girly. That
Yeah.
woman is hardworking. Leave her alone.
Literally. So Dean asks the manager if he's seen Sam. The manager's like, yeah, he left this morning before dawn, and he took your car. And Dean's like, can I use your computer? And he's like, no, you cannot use my computer. Why would I let you use my computer? And then Dean's like, what if I give you a wad of $100 bills? And he's like, okay, yeah, sure. Dean is then on the computer, on the phone with, I believe, the cell phone service provider. And he's telling them, like, that he needs them to turn on the GPS tracker on Sam's phone. He's like, my son snuck out and he went to go see Justin Timberlake last night and I need to find him. And the person's like, responds, he's like, yeah, no, Duluth, Minnesota is really far to go to a concert, but that's just how Timberlake is, you know?
And then he's like, oh, because my son is diabetic and needs his insulin.
Yeah, so I have to go find him. It's urgent.
Like,
you turn his GPS tracker on his phone.
Shout out to Verizon for having terrible security and letting anybody track somebody. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So Dean is like, track Sam to Duluth. So he's like, okay, I know where he is. So he goes off to get Sam. So then we're in Minnesota. There's this bar. It's a very like local, like dive bar kind of style place. And who do we see working there? But Joe Harvale, who, if you'll remember, like left home, like left Ellen after finding out that she was kind of lying to her about what happened about her dad's death. Because if you'll remember, the last time when Joe's dad died, he was on a hunt with John. So just keep that in mind. So Joe is like working at this bar and she's like, oh, we're closed. And then Sam is like, oh my gosh, hey Joe. And she's like, oh, Sam, you are like the last person I was expecting to see. What are you doing here? And he's like, can I get a beer? And she's like, okay, fine, 1 beer. So what are you doing here? And he's like, honestly, I know that we left on like really bad terms. I wanted to square things away and I wanted to apologize about your dad's death. But like, please know, like that was our dad. He did that. We didn't. Dean and I had nothing to do with that. And it still sucks, but it's not like, please don't blame us for that. And she's like, okay, yeah, like I get it. Can I talk to Dean about it? Like, where is he? And then Sam kind of has this weird little moment. And he's like, oh, you're thinking about Dean? Well, Dean likes you, but like not in the way you want him to. And she's like, that was not what I was talking about at all. What? And he's like, no, like she's just not into you in like a romantic way. Maybe like a little sister kind of way.
And
but
this one conversation,
it has so much drama.
Like, he didn't need to say any of this, but considering what we find out he is later, I'm like,
it's fucked up.
It's fucked up, but also like he is clearly, and he's like he's like, oh, but romantically that would never work out. And I kept going, yeah, because he's gay. And this is the early 2000s, because that's pretty much saying that he's gay. Like, it's even more that he's gay then than it is now. Like, he's like, it really wouldn't work. Like, he's trying to let her down easy.
It really wouldn't work out. There's a bunch of reasons. I don't want to say exactly why, but yeah.
Like, he's trying, like, and I just think of, like, how all of the demons and angels all, like, make jokes at Dean for 15 seasons about how he's gay around him. And he's like, no, I'm not. And they're like, sure, Jan. Like, I feel like this is in that same vein. Then the scene turns quite awful after this, but I do feel like this is in that same vein, and I'll stand by it. He was like, yeah, what if I don't, like, is he outing Dean? No, I think
he's trying not to, is the thing.
Yeah, he's trying not to out Dean, but he's saying it in every word possible.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, as much as I wish that was the vibe I got from this scene, this is the sad thing.
Sadly, no. Although
Sadly, no.
they could have written it in a more sexist way, where they were like, "Yeah, you're not really his type," and blah blah blah. And
They
he
could
didn't
have.
say that.
I mean, got me there. So, so, so she wants to talk to Dean, and Sam is like, he does not really like you that way. He sees you maybe as more of a little sister, but not in a romantic way. And then he puts his hand on hers, and he says, "But I can be more." And she's like, "No, no, Sam, you are not acting normal. You are not acting like Sam. You can leave. You're being like a freak right now." And Sam starts like walking out the door, and then he turns around and like physically overpowers her. And he's like, "It didn't have to be this way." But then he slams her head against the bar and knocks her out. So
And you're like, Sam, you are not beating the allegations.
no, because also I don't want to harp on it, but like knowing what we know about what this story actually is, what was the point of that?
I mean, I think it's
Like just like to make her upset, I guess, but like it just felt so hateful for no reason.
I think also, I mean, this is a spoiler for later in the, but I think that like demons, like they do like to just do fucked up little things, especially to the people who are close to their hosts,
That
just
is
because
true.
it's fun. Like they do stuff shit like that all the time because I mean they are demons and they think that's just fun and entertaining. So I think they do shit just to scare people. That's not necessary all the time. That's kind of their thing.
That
And
is
you're like,
true.
why did you do that? And they're like, because it was scared the person who was close to you. And you're like, damn, the fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Otherwise,
they're just fucked up and evil, I guess.
yeah.
So Jo awakens, and she is like tied to a post in the middle of this room. And she's like, "Okay, so you're like not the real Sam, right?" And Sam's like, "Hee hee, I don't know. Maybe."
I'll never tell.
And she's like, "Okay, cool. So great, you're not Sam." And he's like, "I don't know. So, fun fact." And he holds up a knife to her face. And he's like, "So what did your mom tell you about what happened to your dad?" Bill. Bill is her dad's name. And Joe's like, "I don't know why you need to know." But like, then he pulls the knife out and is like, "I'm gonna stab you." And she's like, "Okay." Our dads were in California and they were setting some trap. And John was hiding and my dad was the bait. And the thing showed up and John jumped out too soon and it exposed my dad. And then it killed him. And Sam is like, "Aw." That's not actually like fully what happened. In fact, most of that happened. But John did did jump out too early, but Bill didn't get killed by the monster. Bill got like mauled by the monster. And then John put him out of his misery, shot him in the head. And Joe is like, "Why are you doing this to me? Why are you telling me this?" And he's like daddy, like daughter, you're the bait. And then he puts a gag in her mouth.
The way I just kept thinking about the Winchesters. And I was
No.
like, John Winchester, you're not beating the allegations, I fear.
John Winchester, I think, is not. Because this literally, when we talk about the Winchesters, this is basically what happened in the episode of the Winchesters that just came out. It's so dark.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. Hold on now.
So Dean barges into this room, right? He finds them. He points his gun at Sam. That was some pretty precise cell phone GPS work, because that is not how it works, but okay.
Hey, we had MapQuest in those days. It was precise.
So Dean barges in. He's pointing his gun at Sam. And Sam is like, "Oh my god, Dean, you're here. I like can't control myself. I feel like my head's on fire. I don't know what I'm doing. You need to kill me or I'll kill Joe." And Dean puts his gun up and like he tries, but he can't pull the trigger on Sam. And he's like, please, Sam, just come with me. You can do it. And then Sam gets all angry and he moves towards him and he shouts, are you that scared of being alone that you'd rather let Joe die? And Dean turns around and is like, just kidding, and throws holy water in Sam's face, which burns and smokes. And then Sam's eyes flash black, which means he's possessed by a demon. And as there's like smoke pouring off of him, he runs and jumps out a window. And Dean runs and like unties Joe and then runs after Sam into like a storage dock, like where the boats are and stuff.
Where the boats are? I don't know why I was like read that in the cadence of where the wild things are, where the boats are. I don't know.
So Dean starts running. Joe is like, okay, so wait, so he's possessed? And then Dean books it. So Dean and quote unquote Sam are both in this kind of warehouse, and they're not exactly facing each other, like they're both kind of hiding behind things. And Dean's like, so why didn't you kill me when you had the chance to? You had about 100 options. And the demon's like, I wanted to test to see if I could get you to kill Sam. I just wanted to goad you to see if I could get you to do it. Just to like make you upset. But you know, you didn't.
Might be the dumbest demon ever. I'm like,
no, literally,
of all the brothers to pick, that's the one you're gonna try.
To be fair, but the demon is like, okay, well, because you didn't do it, I'm gonna kill you and every other hunter I can find, and then kind of leads Dean onto this dock, and then shoots him in his shoulder, which causes him to fall off the dock and into the water. And the demon has this like evil little face and looks down at Dean, who's like in the water having been shot. Then it's like a couple moments later, right? The demon is gone. Joe is running around the dock looking for Dean. She's like calling his phone but gets no answer. She tries to call his phone again and she hears his phone ringing, and she looks down and sees him like lying on the edge of a dock in the water and is still alive. So she runs down and like grabs him, and she takes him back to the bar she was working at, right? And we see her like suturing his wound and pulling out like the bullet with some tweezers. And she's like, so how'd you know Sam was possessed? And Dean's like, well, I knew that was not him. And she's like, do demons ever tell the truth? And Dean's like, well, sometimes, especially if they know that the truth is gonna hurt you or like mess with your head. Why? And she's like, oh, no reason. And then she kind of finishes patching him up. And he's like, well, the demon's going after hunters, and the closest one that I know is in South Dakota. So Joe is like, oh, I'll go with you. And Dean's like, I cannot do that. Like, I can't have you doing this. This is not your fight. If you try to follow me, I am going to tie you to this post here. I'm not going to let you get like involved in this. And she's like, okay, well, here's some pills for your pain. And Dean's like, well, thank you for your help. I appreciate it. And I will call you later. He leaves, the door shuts, and she's like, no, you won't. He's not going to call later. Joe, the world is stacked against you, Queen.
Joe.
You're better than him. You deserve better. So then we see a familiar doorstep, and we see Sam cutting the phone line to this house. And then he knocks on the door. And who answers the door but Bobby? This is it, folks. We get Joe and Bobby in the same episode. So exciting.
We did it. This is my Infinity War.
This is my multiverse of madness. So he knocks on the door and Bobby comes out. He's like, oh my gosh, Sam, it's so good to see you. What are you doing here? Come in. I'll grab you a beer. So they're kind of chatting, and he's like, oh yeah, what's going on? Sam's like, oh yeah, we were in town and I just figured I wanted to come by and see you. And he's like, oh yeah, where's Dean? And he's like, oh, a 12-pack and a girl back in a motel. And Bobby's like, well, was she pretty? And Sam's like, yeah, I guess. I didn't really see her. And then Bobby's like, yeah, here you go. Here's a beer. He's like, yeah. He's like, well, I'm so excited to see ya. Sam takes a sip of the beer and then starts falling to the ground, like coughs up smoke. And Bobby's like, yeah, you fucking idiot. I put holy water in the beer. Sam wouldn't have noticed it, but you're not Sam. And then punches the fuck out of him and knocks him out. Bobby never misses. I will say it. Bobby, best character.
Oh, I mean, we've said this before. Bobby has always been the best character. He's our Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's always been the best character. And he's the only reason that I cried in the finale. He's the only bitch I care about. Like,
because he's just the best.
He actually cares. And also, that episode about his backstory, or is it his backstory, or the one where he's like, nobody should say that to you, kid, or whatever. I'm like, I think he's also one of the only people to be like, actually, fuck John Winchester.
No, literally. I mean, to be fair, a lot of people are like, fuck John Winchester, but none are for the right reasons. All the people who hate John Winchester hate him for something that I feel like was out of his control. No one hates him because he was just a bad dad.
Yeah, well, or they hate him because, like, he did something to them, and Bobby's like, I saw how he raised his kids, and I went, the fuck that.
Literally.
And he's so, and I think he's so me-coded for real.
He's
in
real
that way.
That. Yeah. So Sam, quote unquote, wakes up to being slapped by Dean. And we realize that he is tied to a chair underneath a devil's trap, which is on the ceiling, which, as a reminder, a devil's trap is a little circle that you can draw that makes it so demons like can't get out, like they're trapped in it. It kind of starts poking fun at Dean while he and Bobby start to like exercise it. And Bobby begins reciting this incantation, and the demon at first is like, ah! Dean is kind of talking shit as the exorcism is starting. He's like, oh, you've got that bitch boy master plan you demons are cooking up. Well, I don't give a fuck. You will never get Sam, because I'm going to destroy all of you before you can get to Sam. So the demon is like, oh, ow, haha. Fucking idiot. I don't give a rat's ass about some master plan. And then it starts saying an incantation, and the fireplace flares, and like it is clearly not being affected by the exorcism. And Bobby looks at Sam and he's like, wait a minute. There's like a mark on his arm. It's a binding link. It's like, it looks like a burn in this shape. It's like a circle with a line through it. And he's like, it locks the demon in its body, so it can't be like exorcised. And the demon is continuing this incantation, and the ceiling cracks, and the devil's trap breaks and releases the demon. So the demon breaks out of its bindings and launches Bobby and Dean into like opposite ends of the room. And the demon starts beating the fuck out of Dean, and then is like describing as this is happening, hell is like still hell for demons. Like it still sucks. Like it's a prison. It's made of bones and flesh and blood and fear, and I like don't want to be there is the thing. And it's your fucking fault that I was sent back there. And Dean's like, oh my god, Meg!
Hey, girly!
Wait, holy shit. And the demon's like, my only thought while climbing back out of hell was the prospect of torturing you nice and slow, more than you torture yourself. And it's like, you are a useless member of the family. And I saw your dad in hell. He's also having a terrible fucking time, so congrats. And as it's like,
Dean's like, he deserves to be there, but I don't care.
Yeah. Sadly, I don't think Dean is quite there yet emotionally. He's quite upset. But as the demon is like winding up to throw another punch, Bobby comes up behind it with like a metal rod that's like hot from the fire and burns a gap on the binding link on Sam's arm. And the demon starts like freaking out and immediately leaves Sam's body. And the smoke like goes back through the fireplace and allegedly goes to hell. So yeah, that was the big fight. Shout out to Bobby once again. So then Sam and Dean are sitting like in a room in Bobby's house, kind of recovering from this battle. Dean has a bloody nose, and Bobby's like, So, a little time has passed, by the way. So Bobby comes in and he's like, hey, so, Steve Wandell, he's a hunter. They found him murdered in his own house. Do you guys know anything about that? And Sam, like, starts to talk. And Dean's like, no, never heard of that guy. And Bobby kind of gives him a knowing look. He's like, yeah, good. Keep it that way. A few of Steve's buddies are looking for someone to string up over it, and they won't slow down or listen to reason. So just keep that in mind. Like, clearly Bobby knows that this happened and that the demon possessing Sam was why that guy died. So Dean's like, yeah, you know what? We better hit the road. And they're getting up to leave, and Bobby hands them both these little pendants. And he's like, these will fend off possession so that a demon cannot get inside of you again. And there are these like little pentagram with some flames outside of it. I'm sure you have seen it if you've been on the internet. I'm sure you would recognize this symbol. So the boys are in the Impala, and it's driving down the road. And Sam is like, you know, Dean, I was awake for some of it. I saw Steve die, and I remember being confused when you wouldn't kill me, even though I almost killed Joe. And Dean's like, well, Dad told me that I might have to kill you, but only if I couldn't save you. And if it's the last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to save you. And then they both kind of go silent for a little bit. And then Dean, in true Dean fashion, goes, dude, you had a girl inside of you for like 2 weeks. And then they both kind of laugh and the episode ends.
That's so interesting, Dean, that you even though you went through that horrible traumatic experience with your brother, that's all you were thinking about.
No, you know what? I will say, Dean, he said, I know when to lighten the mood. And I love that for him.
Yeah. But he also, what were you thinking about, Dean? These are just thoughts. Good for you.
Dean, there's something so wrong with that man is the thing.
Yeah, and that's why we're fascinated with him.
Yeah. I think this episode, I feel like I don't even have all that much to say because it's just a very good, like, tight episode.
I mean, and there's just like there's a lot that they say that's very foreshadowy. Very foreshadowy and also very like connected to things because like especially knowing how the series ends, watching shit like this, you're like, oh.
Mm-hmm. And also what's so fucked up too is the fact that like it's implied that Sam did not, like, from the moment Dean found him in that hotel room, like, was not Sam. Like,
yeah.
that whole time he was not Sam. It's so like fucked up, like all these conversations that they had, also, and it was like not Sam.
Yeah, also, and he's like, oh, I was awake the whole time, but also the fact that Meg knows Sam means that she was able to act as him really well the whole time.
Yeah, that is, I know, that was embarrassing for him, honestly.
Meg's method acting.
Oh my god, Meg, you continue to be slay.
I did see in the trivia that the VW Beetle, that is Ava Wilson's car.
What?
So...
He stole Ava's car, she's missing, and he stole her
car. Sam!
Meg.
Meg.
Oh, Meg.
Yeah, also her saying like, yeah, you being resurrected is kind of a thing for you it's so funny. It's so funny because like he becomes an ongoing joke to the point where death.
Well, here, let's add context to that first.
When Meg, when does Meg say that?
I think she says it when they, like, after it has been revealed that she is a demon, when she's, like, beating the fuck out of Dean.
Yeah, and she's like, yeah, oh, you're back. Seems to be kind of a thing for you. Whatever. And
yeah, because over the course of the series, Dean has died, what, twice, technically? Like, the first time was when the shapeshifter, like, quote, died.
Yeah.
And then there was another time
in the hospital.
When he died, so he's been having a moment.
And then the fact that becomes such a big plot point by the end, that there is that Death herself has a room full of Dean Winchester's deaths in it, is so, again, it wasn't on purpose, but boy, watching it now is so sorry for the spoilers, everybody. This is what we do on this show. We spoil the rest of the seasons because it's a bad show. Even
We're
though,
trying so desperately to force you to not watch this show.
yeah, we spoil the rest of the seasons, but sadly we are having genuine emotions about it, and it's hateful. It's really quite hateful.
Yeah. Something else I do want to say is I don't think we have addressed it yet. Nikki Acox, who did play Meg in seasons 1 and 2, did pass away. So rest in peace to her. She was one of my favorite like parts of the early seasons of this show.
No,
So just
literally.
shout out to her, shout out to her family. Rest in peace.
Yeah, it was wild. I think when we were recording our last episode of RuPaul's Pod Race, spoiler alert, we do this segment called Name That Ship, and there was a Star Wars Supernatural crossover fic, and it involved Meg Masters, and it was right after we found out that news, and we were like, oh my
It
god.
felt like fate, but
And we were like, Jesus.
yeah.
So
But shout out to her. She really brought a very like specific charm and
yeah.
really made these early seasons so like catching, so
Yeah.
captivating.
And yeah, and even though like, then of course like the demon herself was played by like several actors over the course of the series, like people still ended up really liking her cuz she could have ended up being like any villain.
Yeah.
But and there are many forgettable villains in Supernatural, but she was always a favorite, especially in a show where they never write female characters well. She was always a favorite. So it was like, "Oh, damn." Now that we've discussed John Winchester a little bit, let's discuss him some more.
But in a different way. John, let's talk about the Winchesters. So just so you guys know, we've talked about this in the past, when we've talked about the Winchesters. We're not telling you to go watch this show. However, we are going to talk about it. We're not going to give it like point by point like we do with Supernatural. So we are going to be talking about spoilers, and we are just going to kind of be shooting this shit about this show. So if you guys are interested in hearing us talk about it, now is the time. I guess you won't really need to be watching it to understand what we're going to talk about, but like, I don't know if you will. Fingers
Yeah.
crossed, babe.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like watching the Star Wars prequels and like not knowing who Anakin Skywalker is and just kind of vibing, and I think that'd be
Yeah.
kind of funny, to be
Honestly,
honest.
I feel like you could probably first of all, you could absolutely watch the Winchesters without having seen Supernatural and it would make sense.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
in fact, it might be better.
Yeah, it might actually be better.
If you've never watched Supernatural.
Be like, does
That's what
Carlos survive? Who can say?
this is, guys, I have great news. The Mystery Spotcast's only purpose has been to give people a primer so they can watch the Winchesters. So yeah, we're going to be talking about the two most recent episodes. So that's episode 6 and episode 7, which is the Art of Dying and Reflections. So just so you know, spoilers for those two.
Yeah, so I watched Art of Dying a while back.
Yeah, I just watched it the other day.
Which one is this one is the one
This
where
is the one where
this
I'll
is the
read
Lautica episode, right?
Yes. Let me read the
Okay.
summary. Call for help. Mary, played by Meg Donnelly, gets a call from an old family friend who's looking for some help, but when the team arrives, they learn some crucial details were left out. While Lautica struggles with being a hunter and questions her future with it, John's eagerness and commitment to the hunt worries Mary. Carlos finds himself in a situation he's never experienced before and doesn't know what to do with himself. So that's the episode. Basically, Mary is trying to retire from hunting, right? An old family friend who did retire from hunting calls them and is like, hey girlie, my old partner died, so I need you to come here and help me. So they go to help her, right? And it's about them having this sort of like bonding experience. John is clearly like getting angrier and angrier at himself and at everybody. Mary is like, I need to leave, I gotta get out, and this is a perfect example. And then they find out that her friend, who's like basically like an aunt to her, kind of did some shady shit and may have gotten another hunter killed because he was acting out of pocket. And Latika also has this very slay plot line where she's like, I don't know if I'm gonna, like, if I'm any good at being a hunter because, like, I'm a pacifist. And then in the end, she uses her pacifism to stop a ghost. So it's slay.
It's very slay. But this whole episode is like a metaphor for like the ghost of Christmas past.
Mm-hmm.
Is a whole metaphor for what will happen to John Winchester.
No, literally. Because, like,
well, and it's a very interesting commentary on like mental health, because it basically what happens is that like the family friend is like, yeah, we had this hunter friend and he was really great, but then he started to get really aggressive and kind of go off the deep end. Like we couldn't control him anymore, and it got to the point where like he was a danger to us. And Mary's like, well, you didn't have to kill him. And they were like, well, it was that or he was eventually gonna kill us. And so we just kind of like let a being kill him, and we all felt really bad about it. And she was like, you could have gotten him help. And I was like, to be fair, this was probably like the 1950s, so maybe
yeah.
not. But
I appreciate Mary's optimism. I also appreciate how in touch everyone is with their emotions. Because, like,
yeah,
John is clearly like going through some like anger. He's having some big feelings, some adult feelings. And he's kind of being like, he's saying like, no, Mary, I'm doing this so you can retire from hunting. And she's like, you are using me and hunting as an excuse because you're angry.
when okay, oh yeah, they have this fight when he said that, and I was like, oh, I literally gasped. I was like, because that's what he does for the rest of his life. He uses
No,
the
literally.
loss of Mary Winchester as an excuse for everything. And I was just like,
No,
I know they wrote that on purpose.
Oh,
I was like,
absolutely.
what
No,
the fuck?
this is the thing. I feel like I was like, oh my god, fuck this show for making John Winchester the protagonist. No one wanted a story about John Winchester. And now that I have it, I'm like, they know John Winchester better than anybody. Because I think a lot of people are worried that like Jensen has fallen into the, oh, John Winchester was a misunderstood guy kind of vibe. So I think a lot of people were worried that this was just going to be a bunch of John apologism. But this is like, they really took like everything that John does wrong and says, we're going to explain it to you right now. And it's still bad.
I think because in the first couple seasons of Supernatural, they're like, he's bad, but like, he sacrifices himself for his kids, he's okay. And then like in later seasons of Supernatural, they're like, actually, he was like openly abusive. Fuck him. And Dean's like, yeah, actually, fuck that guy. And I feel like that I do feel like some of that comes from Jensen.
Yeah.
Who was like, okay, the character you gave me and the loving man. And so he's like, actually, I'm gonna make a guy so fucked up.
Also, I was obsessed with this episode because it does start with Lata like meditating, and she's like, finding inner peace, I am calm, I am charting my own path. And she keeps getting interrupted, and she's like, oh my god, I'm trying to meditate. Can you guys shut the fuck up? God damn. And then at the end of the episode, and like the whole thing is her being like, I don't know what to do because I'm a pacifist and that makes me a liability as a hunter. And then she talks down this ghost, right? And then at the end, it's her meditating again. And John, who is possessed by this ghost that was like vengeful and angry, who is now like, oh my god, I am vengeful and angry too. I need to deal with my issues. Comes to like ask her how to meditate. And it's this very sweet like bonding moment between them where she's like, okay, close your eyes and chant your mantra. And he keeps like looking over to her to make sure he's doing okay. And she's like, oh, my little guy.
I'm like, oh, what didn't work here that he didn't?
No, it's so sad because John has this amazing support system of people who care about him. I'm like, what happened?
He's got his mom, he has friends. He has this like Yas and Slay older friend Ava, like who's just a witch, and she's kind of just cool and she's there.
It's
like,
literally, I'm like, damn,
something bad is gonna happen.
You know I love Bobby. And I'm sure that Bill Harville was great, but they dropped the ball with being John's friends.
To be fair, if I had to be John's friend, I would dip out too. Be like, actually, no, this is not my problem anymore.
Yeah. The other issue that we have in this episode is about Carlos. Basically, there's a part where Lata's like, okay, so we don't like know what kind of monster this is. I have a friend who like is good at identifying that kind of stuff. They go, and he works in a taxidermy shop, and she and Carlos are there, and Carlos is like, okay, what are we in Psycho right now? The hit Alfred Hitchcock film Psycho. And she's like, this is just like the front. But he buys it. He's good at it. So they walk in, and Lata's like talking to this guy. He walks out. He's very handsome. He walks out, and they start talking. And Carlos is just standing there, like staring at this guy. And the guy's like, oh, who's your friend? And he goes, I loved Psycho.
Carlos has like a full-on gay breakdown.
No, he's literally down. He's down astronomical for this man.
Like they go to a funeral. John is like going through it. John and Mary are fighting. Lata's like having a crisis. Meanwhile, Carlos is like, I'm so down bad that my brain broke.
No, he's literally like, he's talking to Mary at one point. Not Mary. Is he talking to Mary?
I don't remember.
I don't remember. Oh, he was talking to Mary's like family friend, and he was like, I don't understand. I flirt with people all the time. That's like what I do. I don't know why I like don't know what to say to this man. So he's just like doesn't talk the whole time. Anytime this man is in the room, he's like, ha, 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 hi.
You know who that's just like?
Oh God.
It's just like Dean Winchester. He's really good at like flirting with women and stuff, but there's one person that he can't talk to. His name is Destiel.
Oh my God.
Oh, Carlos, you would have loved.
And you know what? In the end, the dude does leave a note with Lata asking Carlos to go to dinner. So it's a win. Gay people, we won.
Yeah. John Winchester, I don't know how you ended up being homophobic because your friends were very homosexual.
Something happened to him.
No, literally, I don't like what's gonna are they gonna like bash him over the head with a rock? Like what's gonna happen to him?
Yeah,
like,
and here comes Carlos with a steel chair.
Like sending him to Vietnam wasn't enough. Like something else is gonna happen to him.
No, I'm telling you, he's getting his memory wiped. It's gonna be so dark.
Oh, they're gonna Donna Noble John Winchester.
It's so dark. Do we want to talk about
when I'm right? The second episode this is the mid-season finale.
Let me do you want to read the summary?
Yeah. So the mid-season finale. So basically they've had this overarching plot. It's kind of like the overarching plot in the Winchesters has basically been like there's all these like really weird monsters that don't normally like live here that have been showing up because there's these monsters, they're called the Akrita, that have come and they've been like attracting all these other monsters and like sucking the power out of them Sailor Moon style to use to like take over the earth or whatever. It's kind of basic, to be honest. And they've been using like not the cell towers. This is the 70s, but they're using the radio towers, and like the radio and stuff like that. And so like they have now figured out that is what the plan is, and they're like, okay, we're gonna go in and we're gonna attack or whatever. And there's a lot of plot shit that's happening in this episode, but basically, the whole time Mary has been like doing this case and figuring this out because she's looking for her father. You know, it's like poetry, it rhymes, love. She's looking for her father, John Campbell, who is also a little fucked up. And she finds like a bloody bag, I think, and she's like, oh my God, this is his bag and it has his blood on it, he could be dead.
It's so fucked. It's so sad. She's like having an issue. I'm like, this girl and
John's like, well, maybe he's not dead, like maybe we don't know, whatever.
He's giving because the denial that he is exhibiting here matches no one else except for one Dean Winchester.
Yeah, it's getting dark. And so basically, and Carlos is helping Mary investigate.
So there's a part where they are like in the Men of Letters bunker trying to like, they got this box right in the first episode that like was then closed, but this box like sucks up supernatural beings.
It's like a vacuum.
Yeah, it's like a whoa. It's like a vacuum for creatures. And they're trying to figure out how it works, and they find this book of notes on it, and they're like, oh my God, John Winchester wrote this, but his handwriting is so ass, we can't figure it out. Hey guys, I'm here in post. I just meant to say Henry Winchester, John's father, not John. So sorry for the confusion. Anyway, back to the episode. So Millie, John's mother, comes in to try to decipher it for them.
No, but here's the funny part of this. Because they're like, oh, we're trying to find Mary's dad. But then John is like, oh, I guess my dad was involved too. And then they're like, so they're trying to decipher it. And they're like, oh, this handwriting sucks ass. Like, we can't decipher it. And then they're like, they're looking, they're like, they're like, John, can you read it? And he's like, well, my dad like left when I was little, but I'll try. And in the middle there, he's like, some of these don't even look like real letters. And then Laudica is looking at it and she's like, okay, that's why, because some of these are not real letters. Some of these are symbols. This is shorthand. She's like, your dad was the court stenographer for the Men of Letters meetings. Dean Winchester's grandpa takes notes in the Men of Letters meetings. Canon fact. They were all like, look at this guy. Make him take the notes. Like Dean Winchester canonically has good handwriting passed down from his grandpa, not clickbait.
Canonically has bad handwriting passed down from his grandpa.
Apparently it's good handwriting. He's just writing in shorthand.
No, he's not, because it's also bad handwriting.
Yeah, you're right. It's bad handwriting, but it's in shorthand.
Yeah, because Millie is like, dang, this is some bullshit, but it's okay because I know what he's trying to say.
Yeah. So they bring in John Winchester's mom to be like, can you read this? And she's like, yeah, I think I can. So that's what they're doing. And
she's dying, right?
Yeah.
She's absolutely dying. Because, like, if Dean and Sam had a slay grandma like that, then it would not have been an issue.
If they had a slay grandma like that, it would have been over for these bitches. Like,
okay, there's another part of this episode that I want to touch on. First of all, I think it's like a very... There's a couple parts of this episode I want to touch on left.
Wait, Richard Speight Jr. directed this episode?
Okay, that's what I was going to say. Because you know what other episode he fucking directed? Of Supernatural?
Which one?
But there's an episode of Supernatural that came out on November 5th.
No, he did not direct that episode.
Let me double check.
No. I don't believe you. I don't believe
Let's find out.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
You know what's so funny? What episode was that? Was that yeah? So Richard Speight Jr. actually directed the Destiel confession episode in which they were locked in a room where basically death was knocking on the door, which is literally what happens in this episode between John and Mary. But then they kiss.
Oh my god!
John and Mary get to kiss, but Dean and Cass don't.
Homophobic.
Richard is doing everything he fucking can. Richard Speight Jr., you are my
also, wait, isn't this,
my Princess Diana.
Who wrote that episode? Who wrote the Destiel episode?
That was Robert Behrens.
Oh, it was Bobo Behrens, because this episode is not written by the same people, but yeah, this is also the first episode where John and Mary kiss, because they're like, yeah, we're gonna do it. We're gonna defeat the Akrita. We did it, Joe. And then they don't do it, Joe. They fuck it up, and then all the Akrita come and attack them, and they like get like trapped in a room, and they're like, "Oh, we're about to die," and they're like, "So anyway, we like each other, right?" And they're like, "Yeah, true." And then they kiss, and then the things come in and are about to kill them, and then her dad shows up.
Yeah,
they're just like,
and
hey.
saves them. Slay moment. Slay Sam Campbell moment.
I'm sorry.
Are you reeling?
The fact. I need to go in the Destiel tag right now, because let me go in the Winchesters tag on Tumblr right now and see if anybody has done a pair. Oh, it's the first thing.
And tell me what you've just found for our listeners.
It is literally a parallel gift set of John and Mary with Dean and Castiel. Okay, I need you to see this right now. The way...
No, the way these scenes are shot.
Oh, I fear I've become the monster. Okay, wait.
This is so hateful.
It's so hateful.
Because, okay. Oh, God. Okay. No, No, because this confession, this moment where Mary and John kiss is so much like that scene.
Yeah,
It's like, it's so dark. It's like they do
the
the
girlies are already fighting about it in the tag too, because they're like, John on Mary got to kiss with Dean and Destiel did it.
I feel ill.
I feel sick to my stomach right now. I'm reeling. This is the problem. We talk about Castiel and then we lose our
we stop forgetting how to act. So I will say, there are some other things in this episode too that are really interesting. One is that they do basically perform a seance to contact John Winchester's dad because he's dead.
Henry Winchester.
So they want to contact him to be like, what does your handwriting say? Because it's so bad. Like, what do we have to do to open this fucking box?
Because Millie can't read it. So they're like, oh no, she can read it, but they don't understand what it means.
Yeah, so she's like, maybe we can try to, he wrote down the information about this ritual. Maybe we can contact him. So they do. And at first they need an object that's like really connected to like that has an emotional connection to him. So John is like, does it have to be a positive memory? So he brings in this music box that he used to listen to every night and like was hoping that his dad would come back, like, and
that his dad gave him,
and then he threw it against a wall and broke it. So they try to do the ritual and it doesn't work at first. But then it's like, oh, you have to be true with your feelings. So John is talking to Mary like after the ritual fails and he's like, I should have destroyed that thing a long time ago because I would listen to it when my mom and dad fought before he left. And I knew they were fighting about me. So yeah, I should have destroyed that a long time ago. And then his dad fucking shows up and is like, hey, oh my god, son, you've gotten so big. I'm so proud of you. Oh my gosh, tell your mother I love her. And then Millie like runs in and he's like, oh my gosh, Millie, I love you. I'm really sorry for leaving, but I have my reasons. I wish I could explain it to you, but also the box just needs to be charged. Oh no, I'm a ghost. Goodbye. The connection's not stable. Also, I was like, fuck you, Henry Winchester. You're a trick-ass bitch.
Also, she talks to Ada, and because Ada knew Henry, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she's like, yeah. And Ada's like, well, he didn't want to leave you. He wanted to protect you guys. She's like, well, I wish he would have told me that.
Yeah, this is Millie and
Ada.
And Ada are having this conversation. It's so fucked up because Ada's like, yeah, no, he was kind of a... And Millie's like, oh, stubborn? And she's like, I was going to say something a bit more colorful, but, you know, okay.
She was like...
No, Ada hated that bitch for real.
And she was correct.
No, literally, I hate Henry Winchester maybe... I wouldn't necessarily more than I hate John Winchester later on, but like...
I don't hate anyone more than I hate John Winchester. Also, every single people are like, do you ship John and Mary? I'm like, no, actually when they kissed I felt kind of angry. I was like, hey, get away from her.
No, because that's my problem is I do think John and Mary are so cute together right now. I'm just worried about what's gonna happen. Yeah. That's what makes me so sad because I'm like, also John is like so willing to be open about his emotions with her.
What happened?
And like then later he's like, if any of my sons show emotion, it's a problem.
You know what though? Here's the thing. As somebody who came from a family where all we do is show our emotions too much, in a bad way, I realize the Winchesters, they don't suppress their emotions. They're constantly having fucking talks with each other about their fucking stupid emotions. And I think their father was one of those people who was like, you need to get a therapist and stop talking about your problems with your fucking kids. Like, I bet he was having constant conversations with Dean, and that's why Dean was like, I have to uphold my father's emotional state and my brother's.
No, so true. They're using Dean as their therapist. You're right.
Yeah, which is why Dean has never talked about
his emotions.
Yeah.
And why, like, because
I think John talked about it too much.
They know how, well, that's the thing. They know how to talk about it, but they don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
They just talk. Well, it's because their mom isn't there.
Yeah.
Well, and to be fair, the like not knowing how to deal with it part, I think they do inherit that from their mother because Mary, she's doing some things. We know from Supernatural, this is not from the Winchesters. We know from Supernatural, her family's also extremely fucked up in the head. And
we can tell from this show too, goddamn.
Yeah, and then in this show they were like, yeah, remember how the Campbells are kind of fucked up?
Yeah.
And she exhibits some absolutely Dean coded behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, I forget he's a mommy's boy. Like, yeah, his dad like gave him severe problems in the head, but he is a mommy's boy first and a person
Yeah.
second.
That's the problem with John and Mary. God bless them.
God did not bless them.
They're both a little fucked up. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm just upset at how much I'm really enjoying this show and how charmed I am by these characters and like the development that they've had. I'm also just like so shocked at how much it's making me like John Winchester as a protagonist without making me feel like, oh no, maybe I don't hate him. Like I still hate him, and it doesn't make you feel bad for hating him like you're supposed to.
It's very Clone Wars coded. Sadly.
I
Not
can't.
the Ahsoka and Rexification of Carlos and Lotz.
Yeah, once again, I fear I'm enjoying the Winchesters. I fear I'm quite excited for the next season, not season, the next like half of this first season.
Yeah.
To happen.
I just saw the meme is if I had a nickel for every time Richard Speight directed in a Supernatural episode where two characters trapped in a room with no exit confess their love as they're about to die, causing Georgia to flip blue, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
And with that, I think it's time for our episode to end.
Oh.
So with that, thank you for listening. For more cursed supernatural content, you can follow us on social media at Mystery Spotcast on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and now at our official Tumblr, which is also Mystery Spotcast. You can ask us questions on our TikTok Q&A by emailing us or going to our new Tumblr Ask Box. If you enjoy listening to us suffer, please rate and review the show and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, Overcast. It really helps us. It helps boost the show. If you want to hear more from us, we are 2 of the co-hosts of RuPaul's Pod Race, a queer Star Wars podcast. So we'll see you there. We've got a lot of fun stuff planned. We will see you 2 Tuesdays from now for more slaying people, fear-baiting things, the supernatural business.